Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we need to talk about Nintendo and their utter negligence when it comes to the Joy-Con drift issue that has pervaded the console for years and years since launch, essentially. Recall that recently Nintendo announced their new OLED model, and with it came these new white Joy-Cons, and people hoped that maybe with this refresh, although this wasn't the substantial PS4 to PS4 Pro style upgrade that we expected, hopefully one of the enhancements that they made is fixing this Joy-Con issue that has caused people to have to purchase brand new ones or have to send them in for repairs and cause a whole lot of inconvenience for owners of Switch consoles. Unfortunately, when various news outlets like Polygon contacted Nintendo asking about the Joy-Con situation, Nintendo responded that the white Joy-Cons are the same model as the previous ones, it's just a color change. No difference whatsoever, so no fixes whatsoever in terms of the Joy-Con drift. It's just as likely that these will get drift as previous versions of Joy-Cons. Another news outlet, The Verge, contacted Nintendo to ask if there's anything being done about the drift issue, if we can expect some kind of solution down the line, and unfortunately Nintendo's response continues to be evasive, negligent, and it's like they don't really seem to care as much as they should. So this is the headline of the article: Nintendo refuses to save the OLED Switch, fixes Joy-Con drift. Again, Nintendo did confirm that the white Joy-Cons are the same model as the previous Joy-Cons, so the answer seems pretty evident, but Nintendo refuses to confirm that, and instead provided the following response in regards to this problem. The Joy-Con controller configuration and functionality did not change with Nintendo Switch OLED model. The configuration and functionality is the same as that of the Joy-Con controllers for the Nintendo Switch console. At Nintendo, we take great pride in creating quality products, and we're continuously making improvements to them. We are aware of reports that some Joy-Con controllers have not responded correctly. They don't even call this Joy-Con drift. They don't really specifically highlight the issue that people have with these controllers. They just say, we know there's some issues that a few people have been reporting. We want our consumers to have fun with Nintendo Switch. Well, it's hard to do that when you're constantly worried that the main input device, the controller, will get busted up and will create issues where your character will be moving automatically or the camera will be shifting automatically because the left and right analog sticks have a drift problem. And if anything falls short of this goal, we always encourage them to visit support.nintendo.com so we can help. Basically, send the Joy-Cons in for repair, but the ultimate solution is to not have this issue at all, so people don't have to go to the website and go through this whole process of having to send their Joy-Cons in for repair, or just say, screw it, I'll just get some new ones. And keep in mind that people who have sent in their Joy-Cons for repair, that's not a permanent repair. People tend to report that even when they get those back after Nintendo has repaired them, the drift issues come back weeks, months later. There's just a complete lack of communication here. They don't acknowledge the issue as the Joy-Con drift. They are not keeping us updated on whether they are working on solutions to this. They're not keeping us updated on progress, on how much longer it might take before this issue is fully resolved. There's just no back and forth between them and the consumer base, and so people are left wondering whether this is an issue that Nintendo's taking seriously at all. It's entirely possible that this is an issue that Nintendo didn't foresee and it's not a simple solution, but the lack of communication and the fact that it's been 4 years since the launch of Switch, and still this is the level of communication we're getting, even though this issue has persisted for so freaking long, it just makes this entire situation unacceptable at this point. And let me remind you that a pair of Joy-Cons is not cheap. $80 if you want to get both sides, and if you just want to get the one, then that's $40. And having to constantly replace those, that cost does add up over time, significantly. This issue dates as far back as when Nintendo Switch launched, but the issue really started to gain traction throughout 2019 when people realized that this isn't just an isolated incident for them, but rather a widespread issue that a significant portion of Switch owners have been experiencing. And so, for example, here we have a post from back in July 13th, 2019 with almost 30,000 upvotes, and it talks about the issues that this user specifically has been experiencing. And scrolling down here, here we have comments from people really highlighting how severe this issue has been for them. So here we have Reddit user I'm Octopus Man who said, I have 8 Joy-Cons and only 2 left ones don't drift. It's ridiculous, had to buy a Pro controller because of it. I myself have 2 siblings who own Switches and Joy-Cons, and while I've been lucky enough to not experience Joy-Con drift, both of my siblings, they've all had Joy-Cons with drift, and this has been a constant issue for them. And so, 2 out of 3 people, in my family at least, experiencing that, not a good sign. Kotaku here, back in 2019, as this issue began to gain traction, in an article titled Joy-Con drift is becoming a real problem on the Switch, talked about how a quarter of the staff, according to this editor, experience Joy-Con drift, and even when they send it in for repair, it might break again, with Reddit users reporting that, this individual specifically, the Joy-Cons would break again after 4 months after having sent it in for repairs and after getting it back. And then the following year, on October of 2020, The Verge released this article titled The Nintendo Switch's Joy-Con Drift Problem Explained, that summarizes everything that we know so far. And one of the most prominent issues is that people don't exactly know what is causing the drift. Some are suspecting is that it's due to dust that may collect sort of where the Joy-Con components are. Others are suspecting that it's got to do with components that wear down within the Joy-Cons themselves, but Nintendo hasn't spoken out about what is causing the issue, and so people aren't even able to come up with their own permanent custom solutions. They can come up with things that will mitigate the issue, and you can buy sort of your own components and try to repair it yourself, but that's no guarantee that the issue will be permanently fixed, because the core issue hasn't been highlighted by Nintendo, and they haven't really been communicating or done anything about it. Now, Nintendo did try to mitigate this by making Joy-Con drift fixes free, even if you're outside of warranty, so that's a policy change that did eventually happen when they realized just how prominent this issue was, but that's not enough. They're not doing enough to fix this issue. It's been 2 years since July 23rd, 2019. The Switch OLED is out. Still no fix on that front. And this issue is far worse if you're a Switch Lite owner, like this individual here, for example. You essentially have to replace your entire console or send your entire console in for repair because the Joy-Cons cannot be detached on the Switch Lite. And the fact that this issue exists on the Switch Lite, the $200 device itself, that's also just incredibly egregious. And so we've been seeing lawsuits left and right. Back in October of 2020, it was reported that a child and his mom are suing Nintendo over Joy-Con drift, and then we go bigger scale. Here we have Chemicals, Schwartz, Krinner, and Donaldson Smith, who issued this lawsuit asking people to submit their information and to upload videos showing the drift. And this is Diaz versus Nintendo of America, an ongoing lawsuit. Here we have Reddit users who have been spotlighting these lawsuits and getting people to actually upload videos for these lawsuits to have some ammo to combat this legally against Nintendo, in the hopes that this will pressure Nintendo into actually fixing this issue, and in the hopes that Nintendo makes reparations, because this has caused a significant amount of financial damage to people around the world. Here we have another lawsuit reported on November 17th, 2020 by news outlet Polygon, and then on an even bigger scale, here we have The Gamer reporting on 9 European consumer groups joining forces to investigate Joy-Con drift. Countries include Netherlands, Belgium, Greece, Italy, France, Norway, Portugal, Slovenia, Slovakia, and their European umbrella organization BUC are urging anyone living in those 9 countries to have experienced Joy-Con drift to get in touch with them. The French and Belgian organizations have already received almost 1,000 complaints, and that's just as of the publishing of this specific article. And guess what? This year, 2021, yet another law firm issued a lawsuit against Nintendo over Joy-Con drift, as reported by The Gamer here on January 21st, 2021, and this one is a Montreal-based law firm in Canada. So lawsuits left and right, and Nintendo still being negligent, still not communicating, issuing responses that almost don't even really fully acknowledge the drift issue by keeping terms very vague, whether it's for legal protection or otherwise, I don't know. But this level of communication at this stage, 4 years after Switch's launch and with a refresh coming, enough is enough, Nintendo. You gotta do something about this. This has to be one of your top priorities at this point, because Joy-Con drift really can ruin certain gameplay experiences, and not everyone can afford to keep buying new Joy-Cons and it is highly inconvenient to have to ship your Joy-Cons to Nintendo, wait however long it takes, days, weeks, to have that return, only for the chance that that may happen again. It's just not tenable for many people who are experiencing this often. And I've met enough people who have experienced Joy-Con drift to know that this isn't just a minuscule amount of people who've been experiencing this. It's enough people that this issue is bigger than Nintendo's making it out to be. Solve this issue, Nintendo, and solve this fast, or at the very least, keep us updated on the progress of resolving this issue, if you are indeed working hard on resolving this. But that's just one man's take on Nintendo's latest Joy-Con drift shenanigans. Let me know in the comments below what your take is on Nintendo's latest response and the way this issue has been dealt with as a whole by that company. And let me know if you have experienced Joy-Con drift issues and what your experience has been like. Share your thoughts below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.